I want to give my heartfelt gratitude to Davishire for the patronage towards the channel. Korvold Goblins and Dragons versus partners Anara and Sealess Wren, Skullbriar and Ruhan. Got some ramp and most of our colours, so yeah, this should be pretty good. Turn 1 Sol Ring for Ruhan and Skullbriar on turn 2, and he's first in the turn order, so gets to hit the partner player straight away. And there's a tiger for us, so we can crack this Wayfarer's Bauble straight away. I'm not going to worry about descending this early in the game. Hollowmirk's Siege is an enchantment. They name Sultai with this. Whenever a counter is put on a creature you control, draw a card, only once a turn. And they attack us for what will be 2 commander damage. But for some reason, Ruhan decides to protect us. Probably just to... oh, and he's left it in the exile zone as well, so we'll probably see a scoop here. Unless there's one of the very rare instances in which you can drag it out of exile. Which I don't know if you can in green or black. Ruhan probably trying to keep him off the card draw there. And yep, there we go, there's the shame scoop because he accidentally left it in the exile zone. Sarinth Steelseeker. Look at the top card of your library when an artifact enters. If it's a land, put it into hand. Otherwise you can put it in the bin. So now we can go for setting up with the Anarchomancer and go for the Hordling Outburst as well because it'll cost 1 less. It'll fix our black mana. And so as long as we can keep these goblins in play, we'll be able to have dragons start to eat them, which is the theme of this deck. Because a Korvold is only going to cost us 4 mana. Ruhan comes down without any haste or evasion so far. Foundry Inspector triggers the human for the first time and makes the artifacts cost less. And that means it's a 2 mana Silas Wren. Alright, we do get into a land, so do we want to go for Vivictus instead? I think that'll be fine. That way we can start looking at swinging in next turn because it is an attack trigger on this one. Trade out some goblin tokens for hopefully something more interesting. Glimpse the Cosmos. Look at the top 3 cards, 1 into hand, the rest on the bottom. So now Ruhan is about to swing in. We'll probably have to block. He does have to attack here, he's trying not to and he goes in at us. Yeah, so we have to chump because you never know when the commander damage is going to be relevant from this thing, but we will certainly Chaos Warp it away with Vivictus soon. Noteworthy there is an Inventor's Fair here. The Sultai player has 4 cards in hand. Thopter Spy Network for the Artifacts player is going to start making those Thopters, and it's some means of slow card draw as well. Should be able to send this into the left and get another card into hand. Okay, goes in with this instead. That's not an artifact creature. It does have to be an artifact creature dealing damage for the draw, so hardly worth the 1 damage. Should have got more damage in and drawn a card, I think. Anyway, we managed to draw into another card. So that is a 3 mana Binding of the Old Gods. And then we could actually sacrifice this after the ramp next turn because the Death Touch isn't going to be all that great. Sacrifice it into Vivictus. Let's see what we get into with the Legendary Dragon first. Assuming that we're allowed to get through to combat, that is. Swing into the left to repay our Jeskai friend over there. We will have this be sacrificed, the Foundry Inspector, and a Goblin token. Of course, Vivictus wants to eat our goblins. And that gets us into a Mind Stone. There's the new Tezzeret over here. I haven't seen it yet, so see how much action that gets our opponent into. And then a land over here. So that actually now allows us, with the additional mana, to go for Korvold, and we can also go for the Binding of the Old Gods and go through with that Vivictus plan, like we said. See what we draw with Korvold first. Need to be getting into more goblins to sacrifice, really. So sacrifice the token, feeding our dragons the goblins again, and that's a counter as well as another land. So let's just go for the basic, because we might be able to discount this next turn by sacrificing the Scalding Tarn. It only cares about stuff you've sacrificed this turn. Binding of the Old Gods. And yeah, actually we'll go after the Tezzeret before it gets a chance to do anything, because it might be that there's a board wiping coming. Plus there'll be some potential blockers from the Spy Network. Okay, a Generous Gift in response to the Binding going on to the Korvold. So we now have an elephant to feed to our dragon, which might be a more filling snack. Quakebringer now. Our opponent has seemingly gone for Giant Tribal. And Open the Armory is going to search out an equipment and goes to find actually an aura, Giant's Grasp. So this is a means of control magic, but it will enchant the giant as opposed to the creature. that it wants to take control of, so you can actually get a 2-for-1 with this by taking out the giant and getting your creature back as well. A Thought Monitor for not very much mana. We'll draw 2 cards when it enters. He did get that Thopter from the enchantment, so he now has multiple flyers in play, which is why it was a good idea to get rid of the Walker while we could. Urza's Bauble is going to keep cards in his hand. And then we see Soul Guide Lantern. Going to exile a card from a graveyard. I don't think we've got any reanimation, but goes after Korvold for obvious reasons. So if we can keep giants out of play, hopefully he will struggle with something like this. The problem is, in order to sacrifice into our first legend here, we have to be in combat, and this has haste, so we want to get it down before that. Go and search for a tapped land and probably make this a Surveil. Urza's Bauble being cracked, and looking at the giant player's hand shows us a Commander Sphere. You have a Maya, we need to stop seeing lands really, so that can go in the graveyard. We're going to need to tap out for the Korvold here really, because we only get 1 discount at the moment. So then let's go Scalding Tarn. This can be a permanent that we've sacrificed for the turn. Might as well go for another tap land here, I think, because I don't think we're going to be needing to hold up mana for anything in particular. Might bite us, but I'd rather just dig a little bit deeper into the library at this point. Cabal Coffers, am I going to regret getting rid of? Maybe. Let's just draw it. Play our commander, which has a discount of 2, and this way we can at least hold up Beseju for if we need it. And like I said before, Vevictus going to sacrifice the Binding of the Old Gods, a little bit too late, but we'll turn that into the right anyway. Korvold can go to the left because we need to hit with this in order to draw. So let's keep the giants out of play, get rid of this before it makes too many chump blockers for us. And we of course knew that we were getting into the Cabal Coffers. It was a Trophy Mage for our opponent, tutors out a mana value 3 artifact and manages to keep a giant in play, unfortunately. It's a good one as well. At least we can blow up any equipment it gets with the Beseju. I suppose it could have been worse, we could have got him into a giant with reach or something. This guy decided to go after a Nettle Seist so that he can start swinging in with those flyers. We'll go over our heads at the moment. Both of the legends hit, so Korvold will trigger and draw us a couple of cards. Deadly Dispute in order to have us sacrifice a treasure into the commander, but probably the Slingang Lieutenant and the Goblin Chieftain next turn. Quakebringer is in the bin, so with a giant in play it's going to deal 2 damage to each of us. Plays that Commander Sphere that he showed us previously. Fire Giant's Fury is a sorcery, +2/+2 and trample. If it deals combat damage to a player this turn, exile that many cards from the top and you can play them. Have to assume that both our opponents are looking at us. Okay, he's going for the tutor now. We should swing in first before he does that. That's why it has vigilance. Almost got ahead of himself there. And yep, comes in at us. I was debating whether or not to block this with the elephant token because we do want sack fodder. But now that it's got trample, that kind of makes the decision for us. It might encourage us to keep hold of Beseju depending on what he goes after here as well. Because I am worried about that Nettle Cyst on a flyer. That'll deal massive damage. Might just have to take this. Okay, gone through to damage without tutoring anything out. Maybe he just decided to save his mana for what he might get into on an impulse draw here. Shows us a Thundercloud Shaman, Borderland Behemoth, a land, Blasphemous Act, Reflections of Lityara, and Thrix. Might be just worth a Blasphemous Act for him here, to be honest. So yep, goes for that. Be intrigued to see if he decides to tutor in response with this, because we could still have blown something up before Blasphemous Act resolves with the Beseju, but he decided not to tutor. Our commander goes into the command zone. Glad I grabbed that card draw while we had the chance. Each opponent's graveyard is exiled with the Soul Lantern. Silas Wren into play again. Plays the Nettle Cyst, but there's a lot fewer artifacts in play now. Not to mention the fact that there's no flyers. So I'm going to keep hold of the Beseju for now. And Ignoble Hierarch. We're getting into the Goblins here, so we need 8 mana, which we can use at the moment. I can keep hold of the Bloodstained Mire to sacrifice it into the commander, so we'll do that. Set up for next turn. Priority consistently being held up by the Jeskai player, so he might have some counters for us or something. So thanks to the haste on the Goblin Chieftain, we now have Ignoble Hierarch mana held up. Yeah, so we don't have to crack the Bloodstained Mire for mana if we want to go for this. We want to hold this for next turn as well though, really. So I'm not going to be blocking with Goblin Chieftain. We might as well swing that into the left. It will get a buff with the Exalted and turn that into a 3/3. Now that our graveyard's been exiled, we do need to be getting some more permanent types into the bin as well, so it could be worth sacrificing Mind Stone next turn. Thrix being played from exile because he's got until the end of this turn for those. And Reflections of Lityara. That will copy his giants. This is legendary anyway, so doesn't matter that he did it in that order. Disciple of the Vault I'm starting to see more and more of in Commander games, because as I always point out, the treasure are becoming very, very prevalent. A Wayfarer's Bauble of his own, and Nara being thrown in for the first time. So gives the Silas Wren and Anara itself indestructible. Wayfarer's Bauble's cracked, the Disciple probably gets pointed at us, and yes it does. It's not that good a deck this one, so I'm hoping that we can wriggle out of a 2 versus 1, but I'm not hopeful. And now has an indestructible commander, like we said, a 2/2 Death Touch to the left. Does not swing in with the Phyrexian Germ. So we can cast the 0 mana artifact Urza's Bauble from his graveyard. Doesn't have any mana available obviously, so that's his only choice. Cracks the Bauble, looking at our hand. Could maybe have waited for that on the draw step, so we could look at an additional card. And our opponents now know that we have Boseiju in hand, which is worth knowing. So now we have to make some sacrifices to discount our commander, but we also have to put some permanents in the bin so that we can actually draw with the commander. A Goblin Spymaster to get the tokens going. Let's crack this Mind Stone first of all. And Disciple of the Vault going to trigger again. I suppose actually I could have gone Deadly Dispute, sacrifice a creature and then use the treasure token, so we could have kept the Mind Stone in play I suppose, but I'm not dead against the draw here. And then we see some dragon fodder, more tokens. So if we want a creature in play, let's tap this down for mana and then sacrifice it to the dispute. And that not only counts as a permanent being sacrificed, but puts another permanent type into the graveyard for us. So then we can put a land in there as well with the Bloodstained Mire, after which our commander will cost 7. So that means we'll still be holding up a Boseiju. So yeah, let's go for that. I'm actually not even accounting for Cabal Coffers because I just discounted it because we don't have Urborg, but we actually have a decent number of swamps here. Could have gone and grabbed one with that fetch just now. Yeah, that's 4 mana, so that adds some additional mana. So get that into play. We've got 3 permanents available to us in the graveyard, that is. So swinging to the right with this. Gonna just hold the goblins back for now. And that's some plus counters and some card draw. We've got Tear Asunder available, another Goblin Sack Outlet. Eldritch Evolution could be interesting, but I think that's a play for next turn really. So in that case, I think we're holding up Tear Asunder and the Boseiju, which means we have to discard something here. I think it just has to be Dragon Fodder, unfortunately. A Swiftfoot Boots to protect something and give haste. We could go for Eldritch Evolution on this to go and get a 6-drop in the Dragon Broodmother, and that would litter the board with flying tokens. Seeing as how we've got a sack outlet again with the Trash Master, could be worth doing. We're up against a decent number of artifacts here, so the Trash Master is actually more relevant than this. And there is the Giant's Grasp, so see what he wants to steal with this. Goes after our commander. It is tapped, so we're not too worried about that. And decides against swinging him. Inventor's Fair, continuing to gain bits of life. I have a feeling if we're going to win at all, then our commander damage is going to be relevant. Hedron Archive can be sacrificed to draw cards, tap for 2 mana. And that is a Metalwork Colossus. Sacrifice 2 artifacts to return it from graveyard to hand. It is a vanilla 10/10. Well, no keywords that is. Mere Retriever. The 2/2 Silas Wren still has indestructible and turns to the left. And as you would expect, we get the 7/7 Germ. So it's going to have to be a chump and a sack into the Slingang commander. It's down to only 1 card in hand though. Both of our opponents running out of cards. So what we could do is blow this thing up and keep hold of a Goblin token, but I'm not sure if that really matters at this point with our commander already in play. I'll try and keep hold of as much removal as possible if we don't need to lose it. So chump with the Goblin token, and then you sacrifice in response to blocks. We have to choose a target for the drain. Silas Wren can cast another artifact from the graveyard, and this time chooses that Thought Monitor again. So not only card draw, but getting flying blockers back out, and that could be worth a Tear Asunder for 2 mana. Although it's noteworthy that with this we could be hitting right through this, because I don't imagine he's going to be blocking with it. If he does, it's not the end of the world because we've got cards anyway. If we want to be swinging in with our commander, then we have to be taking control of it now before the end of the turn, because it won't untap otherwise. And that is Sly Requisitioner. When a non-token artifact you control is put into the bin, create a servo token. I think I definitely want to hold on to Tear Asunder to keep this from being replayed. There's Chromatic Sphere. So it's a 2-mana Boseiju onto the aura so far. It's down to 1 card in hand again, the artifact player. Sacrificing it triggers the Disciple and gets his first servo token. So it's Boseiju onto the Giant's Grasp. And of course they did know about this, whereas they don't know about Tear Asunder. Phyrexian Tower is another sack outlet for us and a potential land for the turn. There isn't another means of us getting another permanent type into the bin here. I didn't really lean too heavily in that means of building the deck anyway, because it's a casual thematic one. So let's swing in first of all. Oh, actually it'll have to be an instant speed Tear Asunder to get through this, won't it? And that player decides to scoop out of nowhere, which is a shame because this was turning out to be a good game. And that lands, so commander damage is going to be relevant after all. Draw even more. Not getting into our Urborg, but we can fix some swamp mana at least. I don't think the Broodmother's going to be quite as good anymore. So let's drop Phyrexian Tower as the land for the turn. Go for the Trashmaster. Actually could see about getting some swamps into play first for the Cabal Coffers, which is another Surveil for us, another land into the bin here. Let's ramp a little bit again with the 3 visits. And we'll shock the Overgrown Tomb into play this time. Now it's Cabal Coffers, which is 6 black mana, so it's the Trashmaster. And that leaves us with 4, so we could go for the treasure token into the Moldavine Reclamation, I think would be alright. And that triggers Disciple of the Vault when we crack the treasure token, so gonna get knocked down to 20. And I think we'll hold like that, and hope that we survive through to our next turn. We've got him at 11 commander damage and 10 power on our commander at the moment, so he does need to be seeing an answer to the Korvold. Sacrifices Hedron Archive to draw 2 and trigger his 2 black creatures. A trading post, we'll see if this can get some kind of infinite on the go. We can destroy that with the Goblin Trashmaster anyway. If we keep hold of our haste enabler in the Goblin Chieftain, we could always go for Krenko Mob Boss off this with the Eldritch Evolution. Doesn't have to be a 6-drop. And now he's going all out on us. Maybe trying to get us to sacrifice goblins into some artifact destruction here. We can make some chump blocks. And he's got 2 for 5 mana. So we could recast Foundry Inspector, Soul Guide Lantern, Wayfarer's Bauble, Urza's Bauble, the Sphere and the Archive. Let's chump on the Nettle Cyst. And we can block the commander so that he can't recast anything. And then these 2 might as well get sacrificed because they're going to die anyway. We take 14, so this needs to get blown up. 15 and 16, so we survive even if there's some trickery. Suppose instead of blocking this, if we're going to blow up artifacts, I wanted to go after the trading post, but could have blocked a different creature and destroyed the Nettle Cyst and the 10-10. But either way, we will go after the 10-10, which is currently getting 3 for damage. And that will gain us a life and draw us a card to the Moldavine Reclamation. See if he's got any kind of protection for that 10-10, because we have to be wary of this thing as well. A Seal of Doom is finally an enchantment to put into the graveyard. This is where it's useful that we got rid of this that he could have played from the graveyard, although we blocked his commander anyway. So down goes the 10-10. That is a servo we're not particularly interested in, as well as a damage from the Disciple. Then sacrifice the Lieutenant to get rid of the trading post as well. Any flyer that he gets into play, it's likely we're going to be able to get rid of with the Seal of Doom now anyway. A Krenko's Command for some more sack fodder for us, and decides to return the Metalwork Colossus from graveyard to hand with the trading post before it goes down. So we eat some more damage from the Disciple of the Vault. So we're down to 18, but we only take 5 in combat here. Although if he gets into some kind of sack outlet, we could still be in trouble. Instead it is a Traxos we're not too worried about. And tapping out into a Chromatic Star with 3 cards in hand. Did not decide to exile our graveyard with that lantern. Alright, there's a Voracious Dragon, which is going to gobble up more goblins, but I don't think we need to bother with it here. Let's just get straight through for combat before our opponent scoops on us. And there we go, we get our opponent for lethal. Drawing into there, just more mana mainly, an Assassin's Trophy as well. The loose plan was to get some more goblins into play with our various sack fodder effects like the Spy Master and the Krenko's Command, maybe Siege Gang Commander, not sure how much mana we had this turn. And then trade one of them out to go and grab the Krenko Mob Boss. We still had haste, so we could have littered the board with more goblins and then maybe even throw out the Dragon Goblin Devourer, sheerly to show off the theme of the deck even further. Anyway, as ever, if you want to have a look at that one, the deck list is in the description as always, right next to a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel financially. A big thank you to the few of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.